Call the meeting to order of the pre-agenda of the Wilmington City Council, and we'll take a roll call at this time. Mayor Pro Tem, are you here? Okay, Councilman Ravenbark. I know he has a meeting with Lower Cape Fear Water and Sewer. Councilmember Spears?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Councilmember Waddell? Councilmember Andrews?
Here.
Councilmember Joyner?
Here.
And the chair's here. Several presentations tomorrow night, public hearings, PH1. I'm sorry, let me go back through the consent agenda, I'm sorry. Resolution authorizing city manager to award a contract to Lanier Tree Services LLC in the amount of $121,075 for the removal of tree stumps citywide. C2 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Wilmington Urban Area Metropolitan Planning Organization and the Cape Fear Public Transportation Authority for the year 2025, Section 5303 Planning Grant Funding. C3 is a resolution authorizing the lease of real property at 929 North Front Street to Protocase USA Incorporated. Public hearings, ordinance directing the housing inspector to vacate, close, and repair or demolish the dwelling at 1311 Simon Street, 1312 South 4th Street, and 1314 South 4th Street as unfit for human habitation, and directing that a notice be placed thereon prohibiting its use or occupancy. PH2 is an ordinance directing the housing inspector to vacate, close, and repair the dwelling at 761 George Trask Drive as unfit for human habitation, and directing that a notice be placed thereon prohibiting its use or occupancy. Excuse me. Ordinances. 01A is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the New Hanover County Sheriff's Department for the Justice Assistance Grant Program. 01B is an ordinance making supplemental appropriation to the Public Improvement Funds, JAG Equipment 2023, Wilmington NHC grant in the amount of $13,552 for the purchase of stationary cameras. 02A is an ordinance making supplemental appropriation in the amount of $918,693 to the Masonboro Loop Phase 2 multi-use path project from various bike/ped projects, streets and sidewalks, capital project funds, and you can see the budget impact, the balance transfer from the completed 2014 streets and sidewalk fund projects. 02B is the resolution authorizing the award of a construction contract in the amount of $1,220,484 to SNC Construction LLC for the Masonboro Road Loop Trail Phase 2 project, and the budget impact and was, of course, the balance transfer from the completed 2014 streets and sidewalk fund projects. And then 03A is an ordinance appropriating funds for Skyline Center upfit project in the amount of $6,299,636. This is going to be heard on a second reading tomorrow night. And then item 03B is a resolution to approve a contract amendment with Monteith Construction Corporation for an amount not to exceed $5,450,740 for the construction management at-risk services related to the construction phase of the Skyline Center upfit project. Then 03C is a resolution to approve a contract amendment with LS3P Architecture PLLC for $106,621 for construction contract administration services related to the Skyline Center upfit project. And then reports of council's appointments, committees for boards and commissions, and that concludes this agenda. Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor, we have 3 items for you this morning. The first one is a report from the NC PFAS Testing Network, and I'm going to let Kara Spencer introduce this item for us.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. This morning we're going to hear from special guests from the NC PFAS Testing Network. They are Rachel Hart from UNCW, Dr. Ralph Mead, Dr. Greer Author, and Dr. Jeff Warren. They are also affiliated with the NC Collaboratory at Keenan Labs.
Good morning, Mayor and the council members. Thank you so much for inviting us to be here today. It's really wonderful to meet all of you. We've got a slightly unusual presentation. There's going to be 4 speakers. we wanted to give you a broad overview of the work that we do. I represent the funding agency, the North Carolina Collaboratory, but we have several PFAS experts who will take up the majority of the time. So the North Carolina Collaboratory was established by the General Assembly in 2016. We're a funding agency, and our main goal is to support research that generates practical information for use by state and local governments and the communities they serve. This is just a snapshot of our work. We do not only fund PFAS-related research, we fund many other areas. For example, we broadly look at water quality and safety. We also look at natural disasters and enhancing resilience. We're looking at protecting the environment and natural resources like fisheries. And then also, more recently, we've moved in the space of education to look at K-12 recovery from the pandemic. Some of our more new initiatives are looking at opioid remediation. We've also got some clean energy or general energy work going on, and then we're also looking at foster care across the state. This is our team. We're a very small team to manage this portfolio. It's a very large portfolio, and that's just to show you how small we are right now. We're trying to expand. But for this reason, we work very closely with partners all across the state, at the state and local level. For this particular network, we rely very heavily on our partners in the State Department of Environmental Quality. They provide lots of input into our research portfolio to help us identify priorities, but we also have a really wonderful fellowship training program, which Dr. Mead is going to talk about in a little bit more depth, that helps our faculty work in state governments to help them understand more the policy context of their academic research. We're also working very closely with the Office of the State Fire Marshal. We have a new mandate from the legislature to implement a voluntary take-back program to collect unwanted PFAS-containing foam from fire departments all across the state. We're also engaged in firefighter training to help them use and learn how to use PFAS-free foam. Our PFAS portfolio, this is just to show you how that broader how our broader research portfolio narrows down to PFAS. Again, the rest of the team will talk about this in a lot more depth. I realize I've just flown through a lot of information very quickly and only hinted at what we do. Our contact details are here. We really welcome your inputs, because in order to do impactful research, we really need guidance from councils such as yourself. So please get in touch anytime.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Rachel Hart, and I'm the Program Specialist for the North Carolina PFAS Testing Network. I'm going to briefly cover the history of our network, our areas of expertise, and how you can engage with our organization, and then I'll turn it over to our Program Director, Dr. Ralph Mead, who will talk more about the work he does here in Wilmington. Many of you probably remember in 2016 or 2017 when the Star News article announced that there were toxic chemicals in our drinking water. This announcement came after a discovery by researchers from NC State and the US EPA that there were elevated levels of Gen X in the Cape Fear River. Gen X is one of a much larger class of man-made chemicals known as per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances. This is then shortened to PFAS. But this is a class of over 15,000 chemicals, again, all man-made. After this discovery, our state legislature were ready to take action, but they also recognized that they needed more information. Again, they also recognized that that information could probably come from the expertise that existed within our higher education institutes, who had again made that original discovery of the PFAS in the Cape Fear River. So in 2018, the North Carolina General Assembly appropriated funding to the North Carolina Collaboratory, who then established the NC PFAS Testing Network and recruited scientists from all across the state to join the network and break into relevant teams to help inform that decision-making with science. Our network has now grown to a collaboration of more than 20 PFAS experts located at 10 higher education institutes across North Carolina. You can see them all on the screen here, and you can learn more about them on our website as well. These researchers are then further split into 5 different areas of expertise. These areas help address the unique aspects of PFAS contamination that make this such a complex problem. By looking at them by one category at a time, they can then facilitate a holistic understanding of this issue, looking at areas such as water, air, treatment and fate assessment, exposure health and toxicology, and applied research. I also would like to point out in the center of this is the Program Management Office. That is Dr. Ralph Mead and I. We're located here at UNCW Center for Marine Science, and we act as not only the glue that holds our network together, but as a point of contact for organizations like yours. I could talk for the next 2 hours about the amazing work that this research network has done since 2018, but I only have time for a few brief highlights. So our water team, in their first round of funding, conducted a statewide testing campaign where they were able to create a comprehensive picture of contamination across the state and identify areas in need of urgent utility upgrades. Our air team has analyzed over 300 different atmospheric samples, including precipitation and airborne particles, and this information helps lead to better modeling for how these compounds not only transform but move in our environment and atmosphere. Our toxicology team is generating new toxicity data that eventually, when published, will be able to help inform drinking water health advisories. And these studies look at PFAS that are specifically found in the surface waters of North Carolina with little to no already available data. Again, this is a class of 15,000 compounds, and only really 6 have been looked at for those regulations. Our applied research team and treatment and fate assessment teams are developing innovative strategies to mitigate PFAS, and you'll hear from Dr. Frank Liebfarth from NC Pure in a moment, who will tell you more about his specific project. And then lastly, I wanted to mention again, we were established by the North Carolina General Assembly to be able to offer this expertise. So in 2021, our researchers offered 60 key scientific recommendations back to our state legislature to help them inform their decision-making for this issue. Let's see. I think they're stuck. There we go. So lastly, if anyone is interested in engaging with our network, I want to emphasize that this is an academic research organization. So we are first and foremost a resource for information. These are some of the best experts of PFAS, not only within North Carolina, but around the world. These are worldwide names you see. Additionally, your questions can really help inform this research. A lot of times, no matter how complex the research project, it starts with something very simple from a group like yours. So please engage with us and please ask those questions. And I will turn it over to Dr. Ralph Mead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ralph Mead, and as Rachel said, I am the program director of the NC PFAS network, but I also wear a second hat as a researcher within the network as well. So over the next couple of slides, I'm going to give a brief description of some of the research, as well as the partnerships that I am involved in. So to start off, my research as it pertains to PFAS is focused on the atmospheric occurrence and deposition of PFAS. And why that's important is because surface and ground water can be impacted through the deposition of a PFAS. So that is referring to basically whenever it rains, there are PFAS within the rain itself, and atmospheric transport can have a very far reach from a point source. The second area of work that I am involved in is the development of a forensics tool to trace the source and fate of PFAS in the environment. Why that's important is because the information from that can be used by regulators to hold polluters accountable. Oops. The second area that I am involved in is the partnerships within the state. So I had the privilege to be a part of the first cohort of applied science fellows that were a part of work that was done at NCDEQ. And my specific role within the fellowship was to work with researchers and regulators to help them address the important issue of PFAS within the states. The collaborations and partnerships that were formed have continued to this day and represent a nice example of regulators and the academics were working as a team. All right, and last, I would like to bring up an exciting and new partnership with Cape Fear Public Utility Authority and UNC Wilmington. This is a partnership that is brand new, and it's going to revolve around supporting the operational PFAS monitoring, as well as increase workforce capacity around PFAS testing. And with that, I will turn it over.
All right, good morning, Mayor and Council members. I'm Frank Leipfarth. I'm a professor in the chemistry department at UNC Chapel Hill. And I'd like to talk to you today about some of the work that we're doing trying to find novel solutions to remove PFAS from water. So as you can see here, the technology we're pursuing is in the box, right? PFAS is produced and dispersed throughout the environment. We're trying to make a solution that removes it on a solid resin, which means this is the type of format where you would put water in a column with a resin in it, right? Water would move through that column and the resin would adsorb PFAS onto it. And then once PFAS is adsorbed, we want to concentrate that PFAS through a regeneration process, wherein we could then use the resin multiple times, and that concentrated PFAS is really set up for lots of the destruction technologies that are currently available or are emerging. So this is some of the early work we did. We published a manuscript in 2020. This was through funding from the PFAS testing network that you just heard about. And you can see on the y-axis of this graph, it's percent removal of PFAS, and each of those bars is 3 different PFAS. One of the ones quite relevant to Wilmington is obviously Gen X in that purple bar. And on the x-axis is the different materials available to remove PFAS from water. So GAC stands for granular activated carbon, PAC stands for powder activated carbon, and IX stands for ion exchange resins. Now at the time, these were the best materials available to remove PFAS, and you can see they don't remove a lot of the PFAS from the water we are testing with. We developed a solution that works considerably better through understanding the fundamental chemistry of these PFAS and how they interact with these different novel resin materials. So, as academic research goes, we published a paper and got a patent, and we're going to continue this research until we got questions from legislators in New Hanover and Brunswick counties. And the question was, what would it take to test these types of novel solutions in our treatment plant? And that really has started a journey of scaling up and developing the ability to pilot these types of novel solutions at treatment plants in North Carolina. And I would say this is really a unique project to this state, and it's because of the support of all the community members and the legislators. So that started the NC Pure program. Its mandate is to develop and evaluate novel materials to remove PFAS from water. This includes upscaling manufacturing and performance testing alongside some of the best commercial sorbents available, so we can make sure that we are developing technology that competes with the best materials out there. This has led to us designing and building out a lab space near the airport in Raleigh. and hiring a team of chemists and engineers that all co-locate in the same lab space, which allows this very interdisciplinary sharing of information very quickly. So now the actual materials we use, I won't go too much into the chemistry today, but effectively we've iterated on 3 generations of materials. Some of the first materials actually did contain fluorine because of the chemical similarity that allowed them to perform better. But we're happy to say that our current generation of material, that is the materials we are testing in the treatment plants in Cape Fear Public Utility Authority, do not contain any fluorine. You can see a picture of 2.5 kilograms of materials we've made in our most recent scale-up. And we think also we've developed chemistry that will be accessible at a competitive price point to current ion exchange resins. So we don't think we're making a solution that is considerably more expensive than the current technology. Here is a picture of one of the 3 pilot systems that we are installing. This is at the Sweeney Water Treatment Plant as part of CFPUA. You can see our team of engineers who installed it on the left side of the slide, and the pilot systems with all the materials that we've made on the right side of the slide there. So initial results, the system we have installed at Sweeney Drinking Water Treatment Plant, which pulls from surface water, we've had installed since March. We've also had one at Richardson Water Treatment Plant, which pulls from groundwater. So these 2 waters have different co-contaminants that one would have to compete with. The initial results indicate that our novel sorbent lasts about 40% longer than the best commercial ion exchange resin on the market. When paired with granular activated carbon at Sweeney, which is a current technology they use to remove PFAS, that combination extends considerably the time to breakthrough of that granular activated carbon, and we are working with CFPUA right now to understand the potential economic implications of that. We are testing and have tested on-site regeneration, so actually taking this column at the treatment plants and removing the PFAS from it in a regeneration step. We feel like that could enhance the sustainability and reuse and potentially lower the lifetime cost. That is the area of research where we have least development, I would say, so that is actively ongoing. And we are in frequent communication with CFPUA and receive their support for testing, and they've been very valuable partners for us. And with that, I think all of us would take any questions you have, if you'd like.
There was I think a comment made about the amount of PFAS, what, 15,000 different compounds you'd indicated? So these PFAS, these forever chemicals, that you indicated 15,000 different types, and you've narrowed it down in this particular area with what we're looking at. Would you say 6, 7?
So the 6 compounds that are regulated by the EPA and the most recent maximum contaminant levels, those are what are currently regulated by our federal government in our drinking water.
And so the other ones, they're out there in the environment being produced by what? Is it, I mean, I see production. We know that the plant in the Comores is producing a vast amount of that because of the processes they use to make clothing and what have you. But the other ones, do we have any idea where they're coming from?
So I think I mentioned this on the first slide. Every single type of PFAS is man-made. These are man-made compounds. So for something to be out in the environment that is a PFAS, it had to at some point have originated from some sort of chemical manufacturing facility. And I don't know if any one of the scientists want to add to that.
So there are 15,000 known compounds that have been man-made. That does not mean all of them are in the environment, right, or all of them are being actively produced. Now, certainly more than 6 are in the environment and being actively produced, but I think that number can act as kind of a fear, right? So there are that many known, right? I think many scientists, and part of the big job of the PFAS testing network has been analyzing what is actually in the environment and understanding that through very complex methods that I know Ralph is an expert in.
So Ralph is the one that you're creating the testing processes to be able to identify these PFAS wherever they may be coming from so that we can put some sort of a plan together to start cleaning them up or, going after the situation. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is. One of the important things, as Dr. Lebar touched on, is at the start of the NC PFAS testing network, we did not know what type of PFAS were in our drinking water supplies, and so that was one of the main mandates in the 2018 legislation. So since then, we have a little bit of a better understanding what types and how much PFAS are present. However, there are instances where the analytical tools have to change, have to grow for us to have a more holistic view of the type of compounds.
So my understanding with the Chemours plant, a lot of it was being put into the Cape Fear River, circumventing some sort of a process there. But then we found very quickly thereafter that a lot of it was being emitted through their smokestacks. So when you're looking at these things from a testing perspective, you're looking at the air as well as the water.
Yes, sir, correct. So from the air side, we break it up into 3 separate phases. So the first is in the gas phase. So what are the compounds that are moving as a gas? The second is we look at the particulate phase. So that is equivalent to as what the compounds are in a gas, they will absorb onto a particle in the atmosphere, or they might form a particle themselves. And then the third phase is the combination of the previous two. So whenever it rains, that in effect is a scavenging of the atmosphere. And so when you take all 3 of those, you get a pretty good view of the type and transport of PFAS. If you go to our website, the NC PFAS network, we have the results from our first round of sampling that are on a map, to where you can see the atmospheric occurrence as well as the raw water sources throughout the state.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Ms. Andrews?
So along the lines of testing both water and air, does anybody know how much PFAS is getting into food?
Yeah, sure. So that is a great question that is at the forefront of a lot of work right now. There are several researchers within the network itself that are directly addressing that. It is one of the big unknowns, and I don't know if either of you want to add anything to that.
I can add a little
Sure.
bit. So the researcher specifically within our network looking at that is Dr. Ping-Ping Meng from Eastern Carolina University. She recently, I don't know if it's published yet, but she's presented multiple times a study that's in review about uptake in gardens from citizens that live near Chemours facility, finding uptake into things like blueberries. So they are finding it in that produce, but this is very preliminary data. And in terms of like the breadth of research that's out there compared to other things that we know about PFAS, this is still pretty limited.
One thing I would like to say is that the advantage of this PFAS testing network is that we're able to perform research within the state, but we realize that although there might be findings that we discover within North Carolina, this is probably going to be something that we are looking at across the country. So these won't be unique findings here, and we need to try and scale up and increase our collaborations to see what it's looking like across the country.
Councilman Waddell.
Yeah, thank you all for being here for this presentation. It's really been educational for me, and I think it's important for us to kind of have an understanding of the testing that's going on as we represent the members of our community. I'm curious, I serve on the CFPUA board, been on it for a few years now. I wonder how does our region stack up in response to how we're addressing PFAS in our water supply, specifically vis-a-vis the implementation of the GAC filter systems? I mean, are we seeing those elsewhere in the state, or are people beginning to implement them? And I've got a follow-up question, probably.
Sure. So as I understood the question, it's, are we seeing kind of a similar infrastructure investment around the state? So the EPA in March, the national EPA, instituted drinking water regulations for 6 PFAS. So now any drinking water municipal plant is bound by law, to remove PFAS, right, from its water if it has any of those 6 chemicals above the maximum contaminant limit. So I would say CFPUA was on the forefront of this, right? They installed this system without regulations in place. But now the rest of the country, I would describe as is scrambling to kind of do what CFPUA did and test lots of different solutions, whether they be GAC or other sorbents such as ion exchange resins or membrane-based filtration like some of other CFPUA's plan tests. So one of the things that we are looking to do through our project is use some of the data we've gathered about what works with different water quality and make that available so that each treatment plant doesn't have to reinvent the wheel and do all this expensive testing themselves, but can plug into some data that other people have done and be able to kind of get to a decision to implement solutions faster. But as you know, the implementation around the country is very cost intensive, and the price has only gone up since CFPUA installed theirs.
Thank you. I may have a follow-up for you. So with regards to the novel sorbents, I'm really excited to see that we're doing some preliminary testing in partnership with CFPUA and UNCW. That's exciting. I'm curious if we were going to, if a utility like CFPUA decided we wanted to implement that fully at some point, would that require a pretty major retrofitting of GAC infrastructure? Or would it be able to tie in some way, or is that something that you guys are still studying?
Yeah, we're thinking about that quite a bit. So the solution that is being tested at UNC, we call it a drop-in solution. So a drop into existing infrastructure. And if you actually look at the 2 columns on the right there, they're thicker than the others, and there's a lot of black material. That is granular activated carbon. And you can see those columns run in series. So water comes down, the one more in the middle, goes back up, comes down, and you can see some novel sorbents are at the bottom of that. So one of the things that CFPUA wanted to test is kind of what would be called like a polishing step or an add-on, where they could utilize their GAC infrastructure for what it's good for, but potentially implementing one of these solutions right in their current infrastructure or with a low-cost add-on, right, could help their lifetime cost go down. And that's some of the stuff that we're currently working on economically modeling with them as we now have the initial results for the performance of the materials.
Because after you build the infrastructure like the GAC system that we have now, my understanding is the main economic issue from continuing to run that is that you can't reuse the actual the GAC, right? The actual carbon has to be hauled off and taken somewhere, disposed of. But the novel sorbents that you all are testing has some reusability, some recycling ability.
Yeah, so currently the GAC at CFPUA is shipped up to, I believe it is, well, I'll say somewhere in the Northeast, to be what's called reactivated. And then they do ship it back down. But there's considerable shipping costs, and obviously that reactivation step is not perfect, so they usually add new material. So the continuing cost is that change out of GAC, although it's not all thrown away each time. So that's exactly what we're modeling, right? Could small additions of different technologies increase the overall lifetime and lower, right, the operating costs at the plant? That would be the goal.
Thank you so much.
All right, Councilman Joyner.
Thank you. I took a couple of different notes throughout the presentation, so I'm jumping around a little bit. The firefighter equipment replacement program, can you talk to us a little bit about that? I know that I've had conversations with some of our firefighters here in Wilmington who are really interested in this issue, who have told me that the regulations which govern production of firefighter equipment don't necessarily give them a lot of options that don't have PFAS. So I'm interested in what this program's able to supply them with in return when they do the exchange.
Yes, so I would really like to be able to make contact and see if we can develop some research partnerships there. We have, the one that I presented was focused on the voluntary take-back of PFAS-containing foam, but we are also doing supporting research at NC State, led by Dr. Brian Ormond in the Wilson College of Textiles, to look at PFAS, firefighting gear with PFAS on it versus alternatives. And he's working very closely with firefighting organizations to test different compounds. And he's got, we're currently providing funding to upfit his lab so that they can do more intense testing on the fabrics in different burn scenarios to see what works. I think he's also looking at the respiratory gear as well, so it's not just the clothing. And if more information would be needed, I'd be very happy to connect you with Dr. Ormond, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'd love to get that contact information today, because my understanding is that there are federal regulations which govern how that equipment is made and what's acceptable for use here throughout the United States, but it differs from what's used in the European Union, which has much less levels of PFAS. And so I need to learn more about that subject, but this sounds like a great lead. So
Absolutely.
Let's connect after the meeting. The 60 key scientific recommendations that were made to the General Assembly, how were those presented to the legislature?
So the screenshot that I had up there is the 60 key scientific recommendations. It's a report. It's broken down, I believe, by topic and in like 60 very straightforward recommendations. That's publicly available on our website, and I believe it's also publicly available on the legislature website. But I was not there in 2018, so if Dr. Mead has any additional input.
Sure, of course. Yes, so to follow up, as Rachel said, the document is available on our website, as well as the presentations that went along with it too. So, and if you have any questions about it or want to discuss, please let us know.
Okay, were the presentations made to a specific subcommittee within the General Assembly? I'm curious as to, like, did these reports land as a hard copy on somebody's desk, or was there more of an engagement session with members?
Yes, I do not know the answer to that question, but I can find out who actually received this.
Okay, thank you. And then the partnership with Cape Fear Public Utility Authority for the monitoring and workforce capacity, what is the, I understand that it's in the early stages, but I'm just curious to know more about what the plan is there.
Yeah, right. So this is brand new within the past month or two. And so this is a partnership with CFPUA to provide instrumentation for their laboratory to allow them to do more frequent PFAS analysis. And so what this equates to is right now, water is sent off to laboratories for a analysis to test when breakthrough occurs with the current GAC that is installed. And there's a considerable cost to sending the samples out, as well as the GAC that's currently installed is not used to its fullest extent. And so by having a instrument in-house, more frequent PFAS analysis can take place to know when the lifetime of the GAC is expired, and so it can be pulled out. And so ultimately the long run is to save funds, and so having to hopefully replace the GAC less.
Okay.
And then this, and sorry, if I could just add to that. And then the second half of it is to develop workforce around a PFAS testing. As you can imagine, the commercial laboratories are in a dire need of trained chemists to do that type of analysis. And so we will, so between the university and CFP-UA, we will work as a team to hopefully add on some continuing education credits and other materials to train folks so they can go out into the workforce.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay. Oh, I too want to thank you for your presentation. I just have two quick questions. One, you mentioned foster care. What do you guys do with foster care?
Sorry, did you say what are we doing with foster care?
Yeah.
So it's a very, very new initiative we're trying to build. We haven't launched, well, we're sort of trying to launch one study right now, but we are trying to work with the State Department of Public Instruction, Public Safety, their Juvenile Justice Division, and also DHHS, Health and Human Services, to identify big data questions. And we're trying to build data infrastructure so that we can see how individuals that track through the foster care system are involved in multiple different systems. So that, for example, youth that are dually involved with both foster care and juvenile justice, what are their trajectories? What are their outcomes? What's happening there? And the tricky part there is that we've got so many different systems that see these individuals from different directions. But we're also trying to roll out county-level projects to understand, to help them understand a particular problem of practice that they're facing. And so we haven't designed those yet because what we're trying to do is trying to change our funding program. So instead of allowing the academic researchers to pose the questions, we want the questions to come from the county DSS offices so that we can tailor the research around the work that they're doing. And so this is one of the reasons why I said your input to us is very valuable, because it helps us design better funding programs that really address your needs, because research is typically very generalizable. We're looking at huge regions rather than very local areas. So that's part of what that's looking at. I can't go into any more details right now, but I'd be happy to share them.
All right, thank you. I was also interested in the work that you're doing with the firefighters, so I'm glad that Councilman Joyner brought that up. And then the last statement, from your research, from a layman's perspective, would you say our water is safer to drink now than ever before, or?
Sure, I can take a stab at that. Yes, so that's a great question that we're asked all the time.
Yeah.
There's two ways, or two things I just want to point out. First, with the new maximum contaminant levels that were released back in March of this year by EPA, that is a great step on the 6 PFAS compounds now to hold water utilities to an enforceable amount. And so that, in the long run, is really good for human health. The second thing I would like to say is here, with the efforts of CFP-UA to install the filtration that Dr. Lebar talked about, and his team is developing, the water we drink now is far improved from where it was when all of this broke. You can go to the CFP-UA website and look at the results of the finished as well as the raw water, and look at the concentration of PFAS with time. Since the installation of the GAC, most of the compounds, if not all of them, are either a non-detect or are, for the main 6, are below that 4 PPT threshold. So the short answer is yes, things have improved a lot. Is there more work to be done? Yes, but I'm excited that we have come this far.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you for your presentation. I'm glad you guys came by. All right, City Manager.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we have 2 other items for review this morning. The first one is a Riverwalk maintenance update, and the second one is a Water Street Park update. As we enter into these presentations, I'd like to call on Tom Moten and let him introduce those items.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. Thank you for the time. From time to time, we try to give you updates on significant issues that impact the community as well as the organization. And today, Amy Beatty is going to present you an update on the Water Street Park as well as Riverwalk maintenance. We found, thank you, City Council has always provided significant support to staff. One of the things that we've discovered is the Ad Hoc Transportation Committee has, which there are 3 members of that committee have served as a good conduit to help staff really dive deep and analyze things. So in addition to the report you're receiving today, there will be a more comprehensive report presented to the Ad Hoc Transportation Committee on both the Riverwalk assessment structural issues as well as Water Street Park. And then we'll report back to you the results of that meeting. This particular setting limits the amount of information we can really get in front of you. And to contrast that, the full presentations for the Water Street Park as well as the Riverwalk structural is about 60 slides. Today, you'll get essentially about 15. We try to keep these presentations about 15 minutes worth of content. I thought you may find interesting that if you think from 1989 to today, what's the amount of public dollars that have been invested in the development of the city's waterfront, our riverfront? And I will tell you that number in today's dollars is $186 million. When you say $186 million into today's dollars, contrasting it with just absolute dollars of $144 million, today's City Council as well as prior City Councils have made significant strides in the development of one of the most iconic draws for the region, which is the Riverwalk. But the Riverwalk consists of other elements that make it attractive: the Convention Center, River Place parking deck, Riverfront Park. So Amy Beatty is going to present you information today that will be a brief insight into both the Water Street Park as well as the Riverwalk maintenance. And we'll be happy to answer any questions. And if you're interested, we'll be happy to send you the full presentations that will be presented to the Ad Hoc Transportation Committee on Friday. Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide you with this overview. As Tom indicated, it's very brief. I have good news for you. It's less than 15 slides per subject matter. So we'll dive right in. The areas shown on this map comprise the entirety of what will be Water Street Park. Today, we're going to talk about that Area 3, which is in front of the federal courthouse. Area 2 is the already developed portion of Water Street Park, and Area 1 is the visitor center. So the improvements to Area 1 were made in 2023. You will probably recall that we removed the covering where we had some tables there before, brightened up that area, put some overhead lights. It's really a great flex space now. And then Area 2 will feed into Area 3 with the same types of materials and look. Some of you will recall that a master plan was adopted for this area about 10 years ago with significant public input, and so the conceptual design is based on that master plan. And so again, this is the area that we're talking about right now, and this is what it looks like in its current condition. We had to take such a long pause from phase 1 at the foot of Market Street to where we are now to allow time for the Coast Guard to receive funding to fix their bulkhead, which ended up being a much more intensive project than first anticipated. And then, of course, we were able to acquire the site from the Coast Guard recently. So that has put us in a position to resume improvements to this area that we've all been waiting for longer than we wanted to. So here's a conceptual design, and again, we are taking the same materials, the pavers that you see in Water Street, as well as in the plaza area. We'll be able to utilize those same materials, so for a seamless design. We were fortunate enough a few years ago to be working with the Azalea Festival Committee, who wished to donate a between $10,000 and $15,000 for a sculptural element in the park. They commissioned an artist and designed a blooming, azalea blooming fountain. That artist is long gone now, so that project won't be completed with this, and really would be difficult from a constructability standpoint to do so now, because the bulkhead work that the Coast Guard performed actually has a relieving platform, so what is holding up the river wall there extends all the way into the property of the park, and so that limits what we can do underground. However, the Azalea Festival has indicated that they do still want to try and work together to do something in the park. Here's another view as we go northward to Princess Street. We'll have two areas that get wider because the park property itself gets wider beyond Princess Street to the Ballast Hotel. And so we're setting up for that future phase. We'll have two areas of artificial turf there that, again, really lend themselves to be a flexible space. And here's another view of that. Bring a blanket down there, throw it down, have lunch there, but also maximizes the flexibility for when we have our Azalea Festivals and River Fests and their street fairs. They'll be able to utilize this space in a manner that's tailored to their program. The Veterans Parade and their activities and St. Patrick's Day, et cetera. And here is another view looking southward. And again, as Mr. Moten indicated, we'll take a deeper dive into this at the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee on Friday. And unless there's any objections from that committee or City Council, we will resume design. We have our consultant, Andrews Engineering, still under contract, and they will work with a landscape architect to resume design. This area of Water Street Park does have funding in the amount of $3.7 million. So as we get into design and cost estimates are developed, we'll stay in touch with council.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions?
Questions? All right, and all the work that they did on the bulkhead has been completed, and we're satisfied?
Yes, sir.
All right, awesome. All right, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. And now we wanted to talk about Riverwalk maintenance and overview what that maintenance program looks like for you all and for the public. Parks and Recreation is the asset owner of the Riverwalk. However, we do have important interdepartmental coordination that takes place there, and that involves engineering. They've got the electricians, so they are involved in anytime there is electrical work or lighting repair replacement that needs to be done there. Excuse me, got that backwards, that's Public Works. Engineering obviously is involved with all of the structural elements. We have for you a map that I'm not going to go into in this presentation, but does a great job of overviewing all of the projects that are currently funded and being managed by engineering along the Riverwalk. We also have our Downtown Services Director involved, as well as Corporate Affairs. About 2 years ago, we developed a quarterly meeting among all of these departments so that we can hold ourselves accountable and keep one another informed of the various projects. And then most importantly, we have WDI and our MSD ambassadors who, with the amount of time that they spend on the Riverwalk, are sometimes the first to notice an issue and bring it to our attention. One of the first things we did with that committee a couple of years ago was to do a sign audit and inventory to streamline, reduce sign proliferation. We probably still have some work to do there, but we discovered that there were various contact informations and phone numbers listed there. That's all changed. There's one phone number that goes directly to the Parks Administration, so that if a citizen notices something along the Riverwalk, they know who to call, and that's posted at various places along the Riverwalk. This slide I wanted to show to you just to let you know who exactly is doing inspections and work on the Riverwalk. This is the organizational chart for our Parks, Landscape, and Forestry Division. And we have one facilities crew leader, one facilities technician, and then a horticulturist who does work along the Riverwalk, the horticulturalist taking care of the plant beds and the pocket parks along the way, and our facilities technicians doing the other work. It's important to note that these are the same techs that work throughout the rest of the city, overseeing, inspecting, and fixing parks amenities such as benches and irrigation and pet waste stations, on and on. Again, that's these three people here. The Riverwalk did not actually have a maintenance program until fiscal year 2020, when council adopted a budget in the amount of $250,000 annually for Riverwalk needs. $225,000 of that is in the capital improvement program. We moved the money after the first couple of years from operating to capital, just due to the length of time it takes sometimes in procuring contractors. And if it's in the capital, then it rolls year after year. But we kept $25,000 in our operating budget for the smaller day-to-day needs. And so the purpose is for preventive maintenance. I'm going to overview the inspection program here in a couple of other slides and go into more detail about what they're looking for, but you can see a sample here on this slide. So again, the first adoption of a budget was in fiscal year 2020. This slide overviews how we've spent that money since then. It's been a little different than we first anticipated. I remember one of our earliest meetings with engineering was to talk about deck replacement. However, we have had a number of situations pop up that were unanticipated that we've had to spend the money on since then. One of the earliest repairs was to the post and cap system. We had some splitting of the existing posts, and the caps were popping off. All of that work was custom, and so it took longer than we anticipated to get the pieces fabricated and installed. We have had a couple of cars go into the river, unfortunately, and so we've had some money spent on those repairs. We spent money, $60,000, for a circuitry redesign on the southern end of the Riverwalk. The way that circuitry is currently is underneath the Riverwalk, and so our Publix work staff people actually have to get into a boat and make repairs from the river, which isn't the safest method. So we spent money on a redesign to move that circulatory system, and it is that design is complete, and the installation work contract was recently awarded, and we're racing against the clock to get that done in time for our new holiday decorations in conjunction with the CVB and WDI. So we spend, ideally, when we are fully staffed, 20 hours a week monitoring the Riverwalk, again with those facility technicians, looking for things like boards that need to be replaced, benches that need to be replaced. First and foremost, they're looking for safety hazards, but they're also looking at our amenities. When do the banners need to be replaced if they're starting to look like they've met their life cycle? And then, of course, as mentioned in an earlier slide, we have the MSD ambassadors, who are such a great asset, and they're looking for those same issues. We have had, over the past few years, a very significant vacancy issue in Parks, Landscaping, and Forestry. At times, we have had a 25% plus vacancy rate, and so that has hindered sometimes the amount of hours that we're spending on the Riverwalk. Fortunately, all three of those positions that I spoke about earlier are filled currently, so we are meeting these hours currently. As a whole, PLF is down to about a 10% vacancy rate, which is, we haven't had one that low in years, so feels great. So again, this is the type of thing that they're looking for: the deck boards, railings, caps, all the furnishings, pet waste stations, pavers, banners, lights, and signage. We started in July a performance reporting tool that I'll overview, and we're happy to share that with council at any time. If you have questions about what's being done, then we can just email that report right on over to you. And so this, again, is that report that we've started in July. It demonstrates that we have fulfilled 94 work orders, which equates to 314 labor hours. And this pie chart demonstrates how those work orders are being initiated. You can see the bulk of them, almost 70% is from the staff's inspection report. They enter a preventive maintenance order into our work order system. 16% is reactionary, meaning somebody called us, somebody other than our staff found a problem and called and reported that to us. Our landscape maintenance comprises close to 20% of that, trash removal 3%, and other complaints 1%. I went backwards. This is something we're very excited about. We are finally at the point where we have an annual needs for deck replacement contract out. We modeled that on the streets program's annual paving needs, so this way we can get a unit cost from a contractor, and then once under contract, we'll be able to tell you how many square footage of deck is going to be replaced this year. So that document was sent over to purchasing. As of last week, they had targeted Friday as the bid date. I think that they may be a couple days behind that, but it should go out this week. There's always going to be challenges on the Riverwalk due to its age and the high volume of use that it gets, and so that is something that will always be a challenge for us. We're in a tidal and marine environment, so things are going to weather more quickly than they would someplace else in the city. And then, of course, with our vacancy rate, I already went over that, and just project management capacity, having those one facilities crew leader and one facilities tech for all of the park amenities across the city, that project management capacity will be something that we continue to experience. But also continued opportunities, again, with the partnership with WDI and the MSD ambassadors, the improved performance rating that I went over with you, and then further expanding activation of the Riverwalk. We've got a new tiki boat operator who's recently contacted us that we hope to enter into a contract with to dock downtown, and that goes back to the adage of the more eyes on something, the more activity, the quicker we learn about things, and the more we're all vested in taking care of it. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I was just, you mentioned it though, with the vacancies. So you say we're now down to about 10%. So that's better than.
Better than 25.
Yeah, much better than 25. Okay. All right, good report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? All right. Keep it up. Thank you. Mr. City Manager? anything
That's
else?
it for this morning, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, then I take the pleasure of saying meeting adjourned. There you go.